It feels very natural for me to say good evening because as I'm doing this, it's the evening. But of course, you might not get round to watching this until the morning time or the afternoon. So good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening. One thing that Doug's tried to do, and done quite well, I have to say, is he's tried to provide a little bit of laughter during this time with his dad jokes. Now, I'll not be able to deliver it as well as Doug, and it won't be as funny, but I thought I'd give it a go. So, what did the cheese say when it looked in the mirror? Hello, me. Bad, wasn't it? We'll maybe leave those dad jokes to Dougie. So, the date which I'm recording this is the 15th of April. And the 15th of April might not mean anything to you, but the 15th of April is the date that marks the Hillsborough disaster. You might not even know what the Hillsborough disaster is. There was an FA Cup semi-final to be played between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest in Sheffield in a neutral venue. And 96 supporters of Liverpool that day went to the match, but they never returned. They lost their lives down to poor ticketing, down to poor policing, poor organisation that caused a crush. And as a result, many died and didn't go home to their families that day. One thing that came out of that time, which wasn't a bad thing, was the sense of connectedness that then happened to happen and occur in the city of Liverpool at that time. Liverpool has two big teams, Liverpool and Liverpool Reserves, but there's another team that plays there as well called Everton. And at that time, there was a sense of connectedness between Liverpool and Everton, and indeed the whole city. Most big cities have big rivalries, and Liverpool and Everton are no different. But during this time in the aftermath, the city really reconnected. The supporters connected to each other. And indeed, the anthem of Liverpool Football Club, which many people will know of, You'll Never Walk Alone, was an anthem for the city, really, at that time. There was a real sense of partnership that happened as a result of the tragedy. And it's a theme of connectedness and partnership, but really this sense of renewing connection that I would really like to touch upon for just the next few minutes. And the reason is because over the last couple of weeks, as all this has been taking place, there's a part of Philippians that has been sort of swimming in and around my head during the last few weeks. You may or may not know that Philippians is a short letter written by the Apostle Paul to believers in the area of Philippi. And Paul writes this letter from isolation. Does it sound a little bit familiar? But his captor is a Roman prison cell and not a virus. And he writes to the church in Philippi. And I'd quite like to share a few verses from the very last chapter, chapter 4 in Philippians. So if you'd allow me to read, that would be great. If you have your Bibles with you, you might want to open them to Philippians chapter 4, and we're going to just look at verse 10 to 16. Here's what it says. I rejoiced greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Yet it was good of you to share in my troubles. Moreover, as you Philippians know, in the early days of your acquaintance with the gospel, when I set out from Macedonia, not one church shared with me in the matter of giving and receiving, except only you. For even when I was in Thessalonica, you sent me aid more than once whenever I was in need. So this passage has a lot more to it than the little bits that I would just like to expand on over the next few moments. Paul talks about the secret of being content and knowing that it is Jesus that gives him and brings him this contentment. But that is not what it is that I would like to share for the next little while. As I kind of said, it's been swimming around in my head over the last kind of 2 to 3 weeks. In verse 14, it says this. It says, "Yet it was good for you to share in my troubles." Here Paul's really saying that he really values the effort that the church in Philippi went to helping him out at a particular time. There's a sense of the practical things and the struggles that he was going through, the practical things that they were to bring to him, and they did bring to him, was of real benefit. And Paul was so thankful for that. At this particular time, when he's writing from Philippi, when he's writing from the prison cell, they will probably have brought him food, because you weren't guaranteed any meals whenever you were under the oppression of the Romans in a small prison cell. So Paul's really expressing his gratitude and his thanks to those who brought him practical things. And it just has been in my head as I've wondered over the past little while, who is it that we can bless in practical ways at this time? Paul was confined to his prison cell. He was confined there because the Romans were keeping him there. He wasn't able to get out. He wasn't able to escape. But there's loads of people in our society, in our culture, in our families, who are not under prison sentence. They are not under lock and key, but they are imprisoned. They're not able to go out because perhaps they are too old. Perhaps they are vulnerable. And so maybe for the likes of me, and maybe for the likes of you, if you are if you're able, who is it you're able to bless? Who is it that you're able to go and perhaps do some shopping for? Who is it you're able to go and run and get some prescriptions for? Who are you maybe able to knock on the window, run the other side of the hedge, and perhaps even have a conversation at a little bit of a distance? Paul talks about really valuing what the Philippians practically had done for him, not only at this time, but at other times as well. He talks about really valuing that. I wonder if there's somebody or some people that you might be able to do this for in a safe way, that they might have some value and really appreciate that. The next thing that I want to share is this. It says, verse 10, "I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you have renewed your concern for me." The concern was renewed by the Philippians towards Paul. You really get the sense that prior to this, there had been a little bit of a loss of connection between the Philippians and between Paul. There's no sort of sense of anything bad that happened or any particular reason why this connection may have been lost. Perhaps it was just the ebb and the flow of life. But within this passage and within the whole tone of the letter that Paul writes, you really get this real sense of there's a mutual care for each other. A sense that Paul really cares for them spiritually. But as a result, the Philippians also really care for Paul as well. It's almost like the Philippians have recognized that Paul, who introduced them to Jesus, they really recognize the value and the importance of how he poured into their lives. And I really get the sense that that means a lot to them. And of course, as a result, they've tried to do something back. As I was thinking about this over the last little while, it made me think that I have a fair few Pauls in my life. I have a fair few amount of people who, at certain points in my life, really poured into me, encouraged me, blessed me, helped me in my faith, helped me in other ways. And I've been encouraged and challenged as a result of watching this interaction between the Philippians and Paul in the book of Philippians. It's really encouraged me to reach out and just touch base and be thankful again for the people in my life who have done those things. And I'm wondering, is there people in your life, the Pauls in your life, who have poured into your life, who perhaps for some reason your connection with them over the last little while has stopped? Maybe now is a good time to reach out and thank them and talk to them about that. Perhaps it's a good time to just even say to somebody who has really encouraged you in your journey and in your faith that you're thankful for them, to reach out. They may not need it, they may not want it, but as Paul has kind of said in this letter, that he's not in need and he's not in want, but yet he really values what the Philippians have done by reaching back out through him. I wonder if there's anybody in your life who you may be able to renew that connection with as well. Keep safe.